regular meeting of the Oregon City Commission, and I'd like to start out with the roll call, please.
Commissioner Adam Marl.
Here.
Commissioner Mike Mitchell.
Here.
Commissioner Frank O'Donnell.
Here.
Commissioner Rocky Smith.
Here.
And Mayor Denise McGriff.
Present. Would you please all join me in the flag salute, our first one of 2024. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all so much. We have one ceremony for this evening, and that is the election and the oath of office for the commission president, and I will have the privilege of doing that. So, gentlemen, what is your pleasure?
I would nominate or recommend Commissioner Marl.
Okay, it's been recommended that Commissioner Morrow be elected commission president. Any other comments about that?
I'll second that.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Oh, sorry, roll call. Sorry, we have to give Jacob a roll here, so.
Commissioner Adam
Roll call,
Marl.
please.
Excuse me. Commissioner Adam Marl.
Aye.
Commissioner Mike Mitchell.
Aye.
Commissioner Frank O'Donnell.
Aye.
Commissioner Rocky Smith.
Aye.
And Mayor Denise McGriff.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay, are you ready to do it?
Let's do it.
Okay. After you.
And then you can repeat after me.
Oh, of course. Yes, so as many of you know, the commission president fills in for the mayor when the mayor is not available. Also, I can ask him to do lots of other things, so that are city related, of course. And I have had the pleasure of having Commissioner Mitchell step in for me a few times when we had major conflicts and I couldn't go to 3 things that I was supposed to be at the same time. So there will probably be some of those. Anyhow, so raise your right hand and repeat after me.
I, Adam Marl,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Oregon,
and the Constitution of the State of Oregon,
along with the Oregon City Municipal Charter and Code,
along with the Oregon City Municipal Charter and Code,
and I will, to the best of my ability,
and I will, to the best of my ability,
faithfully perform the duties
faithfully perform the duties
of the Commission President of Oregon City
of the Commission President of Oregon City
during my incumbency thereof.
during my incumbency thereof.
Okay, congratulations. Did you get pictures? Yeah. All right, let's turn this. Oh, all right, does he need to fill this in too? And while I'm up here, I'm going to take the opportunity to formally introduce you. This is your first commission meeting. So this is Hannah Schmidt, who is our Citizen Involvement Coordinator, and welcome aboard, and thank you so much for being here tonight in lieu of Jared. We appreciate it, and we look forward to continuing to work with you. We have our next meeting coming up as our Youth Advisory Commission.
Yes, we do, on Monday.
On Monday, yes. So commissioners, if you're out there listening, we can show up. They pretty much all said they're coming, we hope, so. Take that away. Some of you may not know, but I've posted in the last week, one of our youth advisory commissioners, Julian Molina Guerrero, has been showing up at Orange Theory Fitness. So his first time was Monday, and then he came back Tuesday, Wednesday, and I didn't see him on Thursday. So I hope he took a day off, because that's rough even for somebody at his young age. Shouldn't overdo it. All right, next on our agenda is item number 4. We have citizen comments, and Trace Clairmont, why don't you come on up? And we would love to just give you have to repeat your name again and your city of residence.
Hello, Mayor. My name is Trace Clairmont. I'm here in Oregon City. And I am here, new resident. We just moved here over Thanksgiving with my wife, and we're so happy to be here. And I have a request for this commission and yourself to consider. I would like to ask the city to prioritize running a sewer line into Connie Court so that the homes that are on that court can connect to city sewer instead of using our aging septic systems. Connie Court's a cul-de-sac off of Glen Oak Road near Oregon City High School. There's about 10 houses off of the cul-de-sac, and they were all built around 1974. And all of them, as far as I know, are still on septic systems. Connie Court was first identified as a capital improvement in the city's 2003 sewer master plan. And unfortunately, it remains a priority 1 capital improvement plan on the current sewer master plan from 2014. In the 20 years since it was first identified for extension, the septic systems have, of course, continued to age, and they're now approaching 50 years, which is well beyond the EPA's suggestion that they be repaired or replaced after 25 years. It's clear that the city, county, state, and everybody would like as many people off of septic and onto sewer as possible, so that we can be on the resilient infrastructure and protect the environment and water quality and such. Connecting that sewer would, help with health issues and water quality issues that could happen if the septic systems fail. I've talked with the staff at Public Works Department about this. They were incredibly kind to spend over an hour with me discussing what it would take to get city sewer into Connie Court. Based upon a couple of 200-foot extensions that are currently being done at $40,000 and $60,000 a piece, Connie Court would require 400 feet, so it would be about $100,000 to put in the sewer for everyone to connect to. Alternatively, it would cost me about $25,000 to put in a new septic system when mine inevitably fails. And it would also cost me about that to connect up to city sewer. And I certainly would much rather connect up to city sewer than replace an aging septic system when it inevitably fails. I know the city would like that as well. At least it would seem like they would like me to be on city sewer instead of septic. I am, of course, willing and prepared to pay my fair share of this cost, because I would much rather see my money go towards connecting to the sewer instead of into a new septic system. That would be money down the proverbial drain into a new septic. I don't know the financial situation of my neighbors, unfortunately, but I'm sure they would agree on principle that they would much rather spend their money connecting to city sewer instead of replacing septic systems as they continue to age. I'm looking forward to working with the council here and you, Mayor McGriff, and Public Works, and I'm available for any additional help.
Sorry about that. So my proverbial question is, just because it has an Oregon City mailing address, is this property within the city limits of the city of Oregon City? Because that's always my question. So it is within the city limits?
Yes.
And do we have the option of proposing a local improvement district for that particular area?
Just, yes, we always have that option. We haven't, as far as I'm aware of, I'm not sure how much work we've done looking into this at all. So if it's something we can certainly look into, and propose some type of a local improvement district, if the property owners are able and willing.
Okay. Well, sounds like you have a little bit of work to do, so you need to talk to your neighbors.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right. Adoption of the agenda and review of the consent agenda. So do we have anything on there that needs to be pulled, or do we have a motion to approve items 7A through 7D?
I'll move to approve the consent agenda.
Second?
Commissioner Adam Marl.
Aye.
Commissioner Mike Mitchell.
Aye.
Commissioner Frank O'Donnell.
Aye.
Commissioner Rocky Smith.
Aye.
And Mayor Denise McGriff.
Aye.
Motion passes.
All right. I was very excited to see all the items regarding the Mountain View Cemetery on the consent agenda, so things are moving forward, which is fantastic. We don't have any public hearings for tonight, but we have two items on general business, which is a discussion with the City Commission regarding a possible 4th of July celebration. And I'm going to quickly just look at my calendar because I wanted to look and see when it falls in. So generally in July and August, we have our concerts in the park right after the 4th of July, but
It's a Thursday night.
yes, it is Thursday night.
It's a concert night.
So maybe there is an option for us to use push the concerts up maybe one, or add one additional or 1 week to have one be a 4th of July celebration concert type thing.
Mayor,
Go ahead.
unless there's more concerts upcoming year, the first one last year was
It's always after 4th of July.
it was the 13th.
Yes.
So it was 9 days after.
Yeah, it usually
so
always
this would
is.
be
They
kind of
skip
its
4th
own.
of July and then,
No, there's none before that. Well,
no,
the first.
there's never been one before that.
Okay.
They've always started the week after the 4th of July.
So the 4th could be its own.
So the 4th could be its own special concert.
It'd start the 11th probably. Is that when?
That's when it will start for 24. Go right ahead, Adam, jump in.
Okay, so the reason I requested we talk about this is because year after year, I think all of us are pretty used to hearing residents asking what's going on around the community on Independence Day. And I think that looking at other cities and the grand celebrations that they put on, I think it's past time for us to once again have something. I know that we used to, and I would like to see that come again. And so with this conversation, I don't have any concrete ideas as to what this would specifically look like, but as was already noted, the 4th lies on a Thursday this year, and my thought was that in order to make it revenue neutral or spending neutral, that we would take the funding from one of the concerts in the park and instead reroute it, which is convenient because it does happen on the days that it's usually held. And then in years in the future, we'd be able to have more time in advance to better schedule something that may be beyond a concert. But for looking at this year alone, what we might be able to accomplish with a concert and maybe some other activities at the end of the Oregon Trail Center, I think would be a good place to start.
I know one year at concerts, instead of having, I think it might have been during COVID as well, we had a light show, which was pretty amazing. And there was just some big screens, and then it was kind of out there all over the place, and it was kind of better than fireworks. It wasn't noisy, and it didn't cause fires. And that was a lot of fun to have that particular thing happen instead of, something usual. I know that staff is already well into planning for concerts in the park, and they probably have mostly everybody all lined up pretty close.
That's what I'm thinking.
He's nodding his head.
It's probably, yeah.
So what is this a conversation that we should take out of the commission and talk with Kendall and Melissa about what we might be able to do?
If the consensus is you want us to look into some type of a music event that night,
Yes.
we can just go back and have that conversation
Okay.
amongst staff. And if we have issues, we can bring back, where we're at, or if there's something that we're running into that we need some direction on, we can do that.
Okay.
But if that's the consensus, let's,
that-
a
is that consensus?
concert
That we wanna look at
on
some
the
sort of
night of
concert?
July 4th is what we'd like to see. We can go back as staff, have that discussion.
Are all the reservations made and deposits paid for the bands that are supposed to come?
Kendall, why don't you come up if you're gonna,
For concerts. I
Yeah.
would see this as something separate and funded separately.
Well, I think yeah,
I think so too, it's just a question.
it's a question of
think
how,
it's-
could we fund it separately?
Right.
Were you able to hear the question back there?
Yes, yes. We normally start that process right away, and we've already started that process of confirming bookings and getting everything lined up. I can confer with Melissa to find out kind of where we are in the finalizing everything, but I'm pretty sure we've already kicked that off and started having that conversation.
And that was a conversation I had with the city manager a couple weeks ago about if that would be a possibility, given how far we are. And that's why this is why I wanted to have the conversation a little earlier. But obviously, I would be supportive of doing something apart from that funding. It was just my suggestion that we look at it as a place to start if we haven't gone too far.
And I would say this, I attended that light show that the mayor's referencing, and it was phenomenal.
Cool. That was actually for the city's 175th.
It was well done, and it was safe. It was everything you would want it to be.
And another reason I think it would be important to have this is when you have a public event with safe entertainment going on, I would hope that there's less of an incentive for people to try and take it into their own hands and do it in their own front yards and cul-de-sacs with potentially illegal
Activities?
Good luck.
activities.
Good luck.
Well, there may be the opportunity, since we have a wide network, there may be some local people that we might, be able to pull in, and I would say it's a late date, but it's at least, what is it? Well, 6 months. So there may be some local, because I'm thinking of, oh gosh, what's Margot Kelly's group's name? Ooh. Sorry, my brain's dying right now, so, she lives down the street, and they have a band, and they participated in the Porch Fest. And then there's all these other hidden gems that are in this town too, the people that play. And it doesn't necessarily have to all be 4th of July music, obviously, but yeah, so let's see what we can find out and, come back.
It would be worth looking into that. If that light show's still available, if it's cost effective. Obviously, you were there, I was there.
Yeah, that was great.
It was good. It was safe and it was good.
I think starting with a concert night, because we've already got some momentum there, we know they're popular, and then supplement that with something like a light show, I think would be great. Maybe maybe we do an ice cream social, we give out, free ice cream sundaes or something. But having the concert, I think, as a centerpiece for the celebration makes sense, because we've already got a winner with the concert series.
And then the scheduled concerts start the next weekend.
Right.
Do we have, from our event funding, do we have carryover from the last cycle? I don't know that we granted all
I don't
the
think-
No,
event
we
money
didn't give
out.
all the money.
right, the 100,000 that we'd center out for community events.
Right.
I do not believe, if I'm
Okay, so
recalling
that's
correctly,
one
that we did not.
possible-
That's one
One
possible pot of
possible
money,
place
yes,
that
yeah.
we can look to see. Okay.
Okay, sounds like a plan.
That would have been the previous fiscal year, so we're just
Yeah.
beginning that process
Right.
now for this fiscal year. So we haven't put those out yet, but
All right, Matt.
we can have that discussion with Mr. Reed and his staff. We
Yeah.
can probably get some close estimates, and we can work with finance to see what's available.
And I'm happy to be a part of any conversation apart from what we have behind the dais. Because I realize there's a lot of work to go on behind the scenes as well. So happy to be involved as much as possible.
Thank you. Okay, thanks.
I appreciate it, as I mentioned to you, that I was feeling a little hesitant about it, given some past history we have with some shenanigans going on at 4th of July, and I just did not want to revisit that. So thank you for bringing this up under a completely separate and benign way. All right, so City Commission work session agenda items review.
Mayor, before we get into
Oh,
that.
go right ahead.
It's much further out, but I think New Year's Eve would be another opportunity for us to do some sort of an event. There was some discussion on social media, why isn't the city doing anything?
That's come up last several years too, but.
Well, it's, I guess, since we're going to talk about New Year's Eve a little bit, I attended at the invitation of Mayor Lisa Beatty. I attended the cherry drop in Milwaukee, and it did not go until midnight. The cherry dropped at 8 p.m. And, well, it was already midnight in New York, so they were using New York time. And this was part of a sculpture that actually, it wasn't the real cherry that's in front of City Hall. It was a sort of like a disco ball cherry that got dropped from a crane. But anyway, so it was quite well attended. They had two vendors there. One that was selling mead, and the other one was selling some sort of hot mulled wine of some sort. There was a pizza booth there, and of course, with a line a million miles long. People took the opportunity to eat in downtown Milwaukee, so I did go to that, and it was a lot of fun. Very, very low key, but still fun. So I'll show you after the meeting. I've got pictures of the cherry dropping. So it was.
And this gets back to our earlier conversations in the year when we were going over the priorities that our residents have for the Parks and Rec, and they told us clearly that they want more community events. And these are perfect opportunities for us to be building upon that. So I'm looking forward to it.
So anyhow, all right. So we have, Tony, we have coming up next week, we have our DMO discussion.
Yes, as well as, since this was put out, I believe we're doing an update on CFEC, the climate-friendly legislation, so we'll be providing an update on that as well.
Climate friendly?
Yes, preparing
Yes,
for that
CFEC
discussion
just
and
sounds like
process.
somebody's got a disease.
Yes.
So maybe we should just say the whole thing out, so.
Okay. And so part of the discussion was, as we start a new year, when I provide these monthly list of future work session items, under additional upcoming items, some of these have been on there for longer than some representatives on the commission right now. So there was a desire to kind of revisit these and see if there are some that could be removed, if there were any that need to be added, or just a reprioritization, a discussion of what's been on this list for a while. Happy to help work through it, or anyone would like to take the lead.
Well, I know there is still, since somebody made such a big deal about some seal last week, I'm serious about this. I really have fundamentally, as I said, God bless Elaine Woolsey, but fundamentally, I have a problem with our seal. I don't think it fairly represents our city. It is very pioneer-centric, and I think we need, we have one that's really nice. It's Willamette Falls. It's gorgeous. We don't have to have anything remade. It looks really nice, and I would just like us to take 5 or 10 minutes at a future work session, look at the old seal, and look at the one we currently have, and because when we got rid of the 2 pioneers on our cars and things, I was I can tell you I was just very grateful that we did that. It's not that I'm dying to deny part of Oregon City's heritage, but Oregon City is a lot more than just two pioneer people. So that's why I wanted to see that one stay on. Obviously, we still need to do some training ourselves, and it's something I had on my list for my tenure, that we do some continual ed for the commission and our other commissions, and particularly involving ethics.
So maybe if we just go down.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we've got, we've talked about it, we just haven't followed through on it, which is basically adding a land acknowledgement. And I know in talking to the Grand Ron that that's something they would certainly appreciate that we would take under consideration. And I'm not talking about spending a lot of time on it, because lots of people have done it already, and we don't have to really reinvent the wheel. We just have to make it work for us. So Tony, we had talked about the Beaver Creek, Trimble Creek funding, and I'm right now not quite remembering. We know that there are some things that need to be done there, and how we were going to get there was part of the issue in terms of, do we have the necessary dollars? There's conservation easements that could be put on some of the properties because of their sensitivity. Were we also talking about funding in terms of utilities?
Yeah, when we think about Thimble Creek, it's one of the larger vacant employment opportunity lands that are available, but we do have getting infrastructure there was part of that discussion. Although, since this is put on there, there have been some, there's been an extension of the sanitary sewer line down Beaver Creek with the new apartments going in. It's part of the WIFIA funding for additional water infrastructure that's going in. So some of those lacking infrastructure needs in that area are being addressed through existing development coming in, as well as future projects that we've identified and have funding for. But that's not really addressing, some of the significant road infrastructure improvements that have to happen that traditionally would be associated with the frontage improvement when a property develops. I know that we're looking at applying for, looking at that area a little bit more closely again. I'm not sure how much of a priority this is right at the moment when we think about, if we, the city, are going to provide funding for like a significant street investment out in that area or not. How development ready, how shovel ready do we want to make this area, I think is part of that discussion. And if it is a priority, then there's going to be a serious discussion about how do we fund that.
Well, isn't part of the issue that we talked about some years ago was the fact that we have been more reactive to this area than we have been proactive. And I know when we were going through looking at some transportation options, and it didn't quite make it into the transportation plan because somebody was totally against roundabouts. But I know we've looked at trying to minimize having all of these stoplights and signalized intersections as you go down Beaver Creek. And so we were trying to look at ways to acquire land so that we could put in some roundabouts to help the flow of traffic. And that, that just hasn't happened. And I was on the end of a losing vote on that one when I was on the commission as a commissioner. But I think it's worth us having a discussion, because one of the things that I have not been happy about with regard to this area is that we've been very reactive. We know we needed to, so we applied for the WIFI, and I think that's proactive, but it was we still could have been a little further ahead of it, but maybe the opportunity wasn't there. But I don't want somebody to come in and pressure us to do something that we're not ready to do. So maybe there is some more critical thinking that we need to look at. And again, we don't have anything that's ready to go. And that's part of the problem in trying to attract a business or a company that might come here. There's nothing there. And then again, we have some, how do I say politely, some unrealistic property owners who think their property's worth like a jillion billion when it's probably not because there's no access to sewer or water and there's, so there's that question. We don't own the land. But what about the land that, let's see, we don't have anything really out there that we own. So it's all basically the campus industrial that we want to try to jumpstart. And I don't know how we do that if we don't have willing property owners who are willing to work with us. But maybe that's another conversation.
Well, James Graham has always said one of the constraints to attracting business here is a lack of land of any size. And I'm all for seeing what we can do in that direction because I don't want to be a bedroom community elsewhere. I don't want to be just a residential community. And if there's land to be had that would position us to attract industry, again, back to what he said, that we have nothing of any size that makes it a marketable commodity. So it's something to consider in our discussions and not just residential.
Yeah, I would totally agree with that. I know that a number of business owners or people who are interested in locating here have looked at that area and they haven't been able to have any sort of reasonable discussion with the people that own the property. And the ones that are left are the ones that are kind of saying, well, I'm holding out for the $1 million payout.
That ownership question is the challenge that I see with that. I mean, we can do infrastructure things along Beaver Creek, but it's such a patchwork of private ownership. We're not going to go in there and cut roads in, across private property in order to get it ready for some development. So I guess to me, this seems preliminary until the ownership picture starts to make a little more sense. I don't know.
But couldn't we have a discussion about a possible plan of action? Because again, like I said, we've been very reactive. We have not been as proactive as I think we could be.
One opportunity that we do have that Quillette reminded me of is that we're looking at putting together a grant through Metro to develop a strategic plan for that area. So, thinking about, what we know are the limitations that we've struggled with, that could probably be incorporated into part of that if we're successful in receiving that funding.
Well, I think that's a great idea because I know Tiger got some to do their little development and now Sherwood has received some funding from the state to do some planning and bring some property. Not that we'd need to bring in anything into the urban growth boundary, but at least they were able to come up with a concept plan. And I think we have the concept plan, but now how do we make that happen? And so what you're talking about would be really, to me, a perfect next step.
Okay, so we'll
To
leave
me,
that.
it starts as a conversation with multiple landowners to see if they're willing to form a consortium where we can make an offering of land sizable enough to attract something other than, the minimal size type enterprises.
Yeah.
But that starts with a conversation, contact and meetings and see if there's agreement. If there's none, end of story. If there's a potential for it, pursue it.
Yeah, I like that idea. Okay, so boards and committees orientation manual review and discussion. I know we've made some changes to that already. Do we need to make any additional changes or it's just a matter of updating it?
Was this? Yeah.
It's more of just a reoccurring review, not necessarily anything that needs to be changed, just taking a look at it, make sure it's up to date. That would be what would be on the agenda. Frankly, I believe that's been on there longer than I've been city recorder, so if there was something specific, I don't know it.
Okay. Well, do we have a process for onboarding people when they come on to a board or some committee that they're on?
The liaisons will have an orientation with their members when they come on board. I know that that's been a little bit lacking during the pandemic, but my goal is to have that restarted now that we're out of that.
Yeah. So just to make sure that it gets on to the future record for the finance department is that we need to have some onboarding. We need to have our budget 101s, both for the budget and for the urban renewal budget.
Oh, God.
When we get to that again.
Oh, God, yes.
Yeah, that's why I'm mentioning it.
So since this is more of something we're doing, we're aware of, does this seem like something we could take off of here?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I would also like to go out on a limb here and make a suggestion. I would like to see somewhere that we make this change that both the Urban Renewal Budget Committee and the City Budget Committee, that the chair of that be a commissioner, period. We have experience in that, and I will say that I was very dissatisfied with the process that we had last time because to their, and I'm not criticizing anybody, but I'm just saying that it could have gone better because we did not have people who are experienced in leading a meeting. So that is why I want to see if that's something we can do as a policy, or we can just make the change and say that it's going to happen. So the Budget Committee Chair and the Urban Renewal Commission Chair needs to be a commissioner, period.
It's beneficial if the person leading the meeting has a working knowledge and in-depth knowledge of the subject at hand. It's helpful.
And how to lead a meeting.
And leading a meeting, which is a skill in its own.
Yes. So is that something we can,
Is there 3 who'd like to do that? 1, 2? All right.
yes. So make that so. Kanema, we're putting that off until we get done with the McLaughlin. My favorite topic, Clackamas River water.
Should we leave the Keneba one on there?
Leave it on, yes. We're just not going
It's
to.
ongoing, correct?
It's ongoing,
Okay.
yes.
We have a
That's going to
tour
stay on there,
scheduled.
yeah.
Okay.
Clackamas River, excuse me, not Clackamas River water. Somebody's asking me about Clackamas River water today, so they wanted to know why the Henrici area had a boil water notice, and I said, that was not Oregon City. That is Clackamas River water, so please do not call the city and ask us about the boiling water thing. Wes rate differential. One of my pet peeves right now. I think it should stay on the list.
Yeah. So I'm curious what that conversation would look like, though, because it seems, because I understand why it's on there, it's just I don't know what the end goal would be for us regarding things that we actually can change.
Yeah, we don't totally control it, but I've made it very clear to Greg that I don't feel that the cities are getting a fair shake with the West, rates. And
Yeah.
he seems to, he's been very professional, and I said that, what he's telling me is kind of been placation, but it still doesn't get to the heart of the issue. So maybe we're at the point now where the commission and staff, we need to have a come to Jesus meeting. So.
But what in our capacity can we do by having a meeting about this?
I'll tell you
We
what.
can make a request. We can make a request. I mean,
But, I mean, we have them come every year for their annual meeting.
yeah, but that's just fluffy
And we ask
stuff.
the same questions.
And we ask the same things. I remember asking the question myself.
Yep.
About the rate
And
differential.
we've
And so
been
while I
asking it
understand.
for 15 years, and we've never gotten an answer, and we will never get an answer, because they don't want us to know the answer,
Well, what they've been telling us
because
is
we're
that
subsidizing the rest of the county.
after the
Right.
bond gets paid off by the small cities, we're all going to be paying the same thing. And I said,
Right, but-
and I've said to Greg, that's fine if we were all doing the same thing,
Right.
but we are not all doing the same thing. And I think that we should have a rate differential because we manage part of this system ourselves. The other cities don't do that.
No, I agree.
So,
I don't want it to sound like I disagree.
I know,
It's
I
just
know.
a matter of wanting
Well,
to
the
make
question is,
sure.
what's the course of action?
Exactly.
I don't exactly know.
So this item is on here so that we're going to come up with our demands to Wes? Is that what we're trying to get to? I think Commissioner Morrow's got a good point. What are we going to do? Have him come in again and explain why, and then,
And
well,
getting
okay,
pissed
there it
off.
is.
Explain
Then
this
what?
equality and why we're all equal right now, and we're not, but that's
Well,
what they will tell
part
us.
of the issue I see with this is that part of the West Board, for better or for worse, is the county commission.
Well, it is, yeah.
which
It
is, to me,
county commission.
I don't think they should be.
And the advisory commission was created by them and stacked exactly the way they wanted it. If you count the votes and where the votes come from that advisory committee, that's why, I was fed up with it. I mean, between holiday and since then, we've been fighting this and asking the same questions and never getting a response. We will never get
Well,
a
we've
response.
gotten a response, we just didn't get a response that we like.
We
That's
didn't get
really
a
it.
realistic response of, they cannot tell us how much flow is coming from Morgan City, from all the other, and they can tell us that. They don't
can,
want us to.
yeah.
They don't want to tell us that.
I've asked them, is there a way to monitor it, and he says that yes, there is.
Absolutely, but
Yes.
they'll never tell us that answer. Because it will point out that we are paying differently than everyone else. They want everyone to forget that and start a new system where we're all equal and we all own the same piece of whatever we own, even though that shouldn't start that way. Because they've had so many turnovers in different cities. And then just the makeup of the advisory board is amazing. It's like, how many people now?
I don't know, there seems to be like an armada.
And
Every time I go in there, there's like 20 people, I don't even know who they are.
And they don't lean in favor too well of the cities, but, I mean, no, I'm all for this, I'm all for fighting this forever, and I will fight this forever, but we've never gotten anywhere. We'll have to, say that, thanks to Alice Norris, this is where we're at, because that meeting when we signed the first MOU with them over a decade, 2 decades ago, screwed us over from that point on. And I don't know how we fix it, but I don't think they're ever going to get us the answer. They're just waiting for all of us that remember fighting over this last 10 years to eventually just drop it and forget it and move on.
Or die.
Or die. Honestly.
Okay, well, let's leave it on there.
Well,
I will try to,
I mean, it seems more like an ongoing type of thing,
It is.
as opposed to,
It's just a reminder
we need to
every-
have one meeting about this and,
well, if I had any idea that we could get our point across, I would definitely say it would be one meeting, but it's an ongoing issue.
well, right, and that's why
What
I don't think
really-
it needs to be on the list.
Yeah, what I really need to do is, so John, maybe you can help me with this particular answer. So of the cities that are in this particular district, this west, are we the only ones so does West Lynn have its own stormwater system, or they rely on West? I know that Happy Valley doesn't. I don't know what Milwaukee does.
Yeah, West Lynn has its own stormwater system.
Pardon?
West Lynn, Gladstone, Oregon City all have their own.
We have
stormwater
we all have our own stormwater systems, okay.
system.
But Happy Valley doesn't probably?
So this, you've heard from me in the past about just this fairness issue with West, right?
Yeah.
They do a great job with much of the work that they do, but there's this fairness issue that I think Oregon City, West Lynn, and Gladstone, the Tri-Cities, if you remember that plant was called the Tri-City
I remember
wastewater
that.
district. So there is some fairness issues there, and if you look at their capital plans, and you look at their service model is very confusing, where they're providing stormwater services in some areas, other areas are not. Providing wastewater collection in some areas and others are not. So, but this item for me on your list, this is going to be a policy issue. This is one of those things that we can provide you answers that will probably help enlighten that conversation. But it is the city of Oregon City and Clackamas County Board of Commissioners. And that's what it's going to boil down to. And I'm not sure how, I like the question, how do we affect change on there? I'm not sure about that.
Right.
We can inform it, and I think that information would help equip a conversation, but I don't.
It's a political question.
It's a political question, and so I'm happy to me, what I struggle with is the information that we need to really kind of prove a point, or prove the point or many points is a pretty vast amount of information, and it would take us it would be going through public records request, probably hiring an analyst to kind of really dig into the county's information about billings and who they bill, who they don't bill, how much do they bill, what is the capital expense in this particular part of the region versus ours. Sorry, that's my phone. Anyway, I think there's some work there to do it right. And then once we get that information to the city commission, and I'm certain that we'll drive home the same point, which is that, yes, there's a fairness issue here, then what do we do with that? Because that becomes a political issue.
Well, I think that for me to start working through this issue is that it can't just be me as the Oregon City representative. I think I need to get a meeting with
Other cities.
the two mayors from the other cities and say, are you aware of this? And is this a problem for you? And if they say it isn't a problem, then I know where I need to go with it. Then it's just us saying it. But maybe they aren't aware of this. So I think that's my first step is I need to say to them, the two of them, are you aware that there's an issue with the way that, and I did ask Greg this, matter of fact, at a meeting, I was very specific in front of the advisory committee. I said, okay, so Oregon City bills for stormwater, we bill for water, we bill for sanitary. You're also billing us for those things as well. I said, so why are we getting double billed?
Well, that's not exactly right.
Well, I mean, I'm simplifying the question.
It's that their financial model is complicated. So those places where they provide stormwater services, they bill for. They don't bill us, but I feel like our wastewater rates are subsidizing some of those services in their.
It is.
Yeah, so it's not, it's not a clear line. It's a
But see,
kind
we're
of,
still getting charged for something that we're already doing,
right.
and we're helping everybody else pay for theirs. And that's why I asked them the question. I said, so we do this, and then you're spreading this across everybody, so why are we paying for everybody else? I said, our ratepayers are probably not totally aware of that. And I said, but it's a concern. And I got sort of doing a two-step here with my hands.
Right, but I guess I do think that if we're going to keep it on the work session agenda, we would probably want to do some, consulting financial analysis, spend some money that we didn't budget to spend on kind of getting to this point. And without that, I'm not sure it's a good topic for you. I think you're going to just have opinions, which are great, but they won't be good informed opinions, which is what I think you want.
Well, I feel it's about as useful as putting tolling on this list, because there are things that we have very strong opinions about how they're unfair and inequitable to the people of Oregon City. But in the end,
Do we have tolling on
how much? No, I'm saying that it feels like it would be about as helpful as putting that on there, because in the end, the opinions that we have don't necessarily. It's more of a how do we push an action on that after that conversation is what I'm concerned about.
Yeah, that's the next step. So yeah.
Well, to me, it depends how militant you want to be. We collect the monies and we forward them to West, don't we? We collect the money.
From our
and then-
customers, we collect a wastewater treatment rate.
And then, so is there
And then
pass through
and
to
then we
West?
pass it through to them, yeah.
So, I mean, your options are, how militant do you want to be? Do you want to financially withhold some portion of the payment? Do you want to bring it to a point? Do you want to go legal action? Do you want to review the initial MOU? I mean, there's a number of options, and they vary in the amount of militancy and how much you're going to stir the pond. So, but we collect the money. We could withhold a portion if we wanted to get their attention.
There's two sides to that one.
Otherwise,
We've been on one side for a long time.
John can say the commission made me do it.
otherwise it's the same conversation over and over. It's
Right.
second
Might
verse,
pulling
same as the
back a little
first.
bit. We haven't pulled back in a while.
Sometimes you got to get people's attention.
Yeah.
And the pocketbook gets people's attention.
Okay, well, now you've given me some really devious ideas.
That's my special.
Well, and I'll just say, this is not the first time this conversation, or the fifth time this conversation has happened, nor is it the
I'm
10th
sure,
time
I'm sure it is.
that multiple people on this commission have tried to reach out to Gladstone and West Lynn multiple times, but then another election happens and
Yeah,
that
but there's-
person changes. But so yes, it really should have been all along Oregon City, West Lynn, Gladstone fighting this. And what happened, as we know, is West went to individual communities on their own to have signed off MOUs, and then eventually they lost control of everything.
Well, I think because there's new sheriffs in town in both of those communities. I think it's worth having a conversation. I know that the previous mayor, there was no way I could have a conversation.
I'm always ready to jump into this fight at any moment. You all ready to go?
Okay, all right. So we have not had a climate action plan presentation. We had Mark Gamba come to our neighborhood association a few years back and give us an overview. And we could still have somebody from the city of Milwaukee come if that's something we want to do. Remind me again what our compatible change update was, that zoning code?
I think there was a question about how compatible change applications were processed.
Yeah, because I mean, one
does that
person
mean?
considering something compatible might not be compatible. Is that like, it's not like a similar use?
I'm not sure what that term means.
That's the reason why I requested this on the agenda.
What is compatible change?
I'm going to ask Aquila to come up and speak to this
She
a little
didn't put
bit.
it on, she wasn't here when that got put on there, so. You might bring your coat, it's colder up here than it is back there.
Well, it indicates she's staying instead of running for the door, so that's good.
She can still leave her coat and run for the door.
Hi, yeah, the compatible change has to do with historic review and how much can be added on, like to an addition, and be considered compatible with the neighborhood or with the designated structure. And so that's actually a conversation that we need to circle back with the Historic Review Board first. I think we had started that and gotten pretty far along, and then I think it got put on hold, and there's been some staff changes, and we haven't brought it back to HRB yet. So it's probably not ready for your discussion yet. It needs to go through some more review and discussion with the Historic Review Board.
Thank you.
Okay. I know we talked about,
Before we move on, so this to me, and there's some more of these coming up, that I think we ought to have a little separate section that's pending. They're not really on our list at
Right.
some point because we have to have other actions
people talk about it. So-
before. So we'll have a kind of a separate section of,
got that, Tony? That's a pending
Pending.
one.
Well, and some are in process too.
Right.
Right.
The facilities master plan is in process, so.
Right.
So we had talked a little bit about looking into having a construction excise tax so we could help promote affordable housing. That's something I still think would be valuable. We're not getting affordable housing in this community, I can tell you that. Everything that's being built right now, I can't tell you that we are aware that it's going to be affordable. And with the state definition of, including houses that are in the street of dreams, they consider that to be affordable. I personally don't see that that's affordable. And I know that I was really grateful that during our recent development stakeholders group, we're going to continue we're going to have a conversation about that within the construction industry folks that are there. And we've got one person who is a builder here who's actually, he's using that as his niche. And he's talking about how he's going to make sure that the property stays affordable, but there's things that have to be put in place, so.
to me, this is another one that is in the pending bucket because we don't know what the final outcome, we don't know what the legislature is going to do to us. We don't know what our housing needs analysis will look like, how many units we need to build. And the last thing I want to do is start talking about a tax when we have no idea what we need it to fund.
Well, I know there's some other communities that have already initiated this, so it's not like we have to reinvent the wheel.
And do what with the money? Because we're going to be directed by the legislature on what our share of housing is going to be. And to me, to talk about creating a tax to fund an unknown target, I just think it's too early to have the discussion.
What do you mean an unknown target? I mean, the legislature is going to try to tell us that you have to have so many units built. They're not saying that those are all have to be affordable. I mean, that's, to me, that's part of the problem, and that's what I told the governor. I said, unless you put something in place that makes the majority of this new construction that you are asking for to be affordable, it's worthless. It doesn't matter how many units you build. If people still can't afford them, what's the point?
I think you're going to have to prove the impact of a construction excise tax in reducing the purchase price of a home in a free market economy, and that requires the participation of the home builders and a review of how does this actually truly impact the price? Not that you start with an inflated price, and because if the goal is affordable housing, what is the impact of this? And I know there's other communities that have done. I think Bend is one of them.
I think Milwaukee, City of Milwaukee, I think, did it as well. So the construction excise tax was authorized by the legislature several years ago. It spells out what the tax can be, how it can be spent. Typically, one of the models would be you're collecting up and then you're probably partnering with a nonprofit, some type of a land bank or affordable housing building advocacy group. Would be a typical one. I know that there are other uses for those funds that can happen. We brought this to the commission, gosh, it's probably been 3 years ago, with examples of what other jurisdictions had done. It was kind of like, now wasn't the right time. Maybe we have this discussion at a later time. That's why it's on the list.
No, and it's like, when is the later time? I don't know.
I supported putting this on the list 3 years ago. I remember because it was Echo Northwest that came and gave that presentation on the HNA because of the legislative requirements that were passed. And I supported it then, but I've done a lot of thinking. And at this point, given that, one, there already is a metro construction excise tax, for me, I'm a little more interested in looking at the carrots rather than the sticks. And so I would personally be more interested in looking at inclusionary zoning, something of that type, rather than a construction excise tax at this point.
I can honestly tell you that without being too flip about it, I am not thrilled about the idea of the state trying to tell jurisdictions how much housing they need to build, period.
Oh, I don't think any of us are thrilled with that idea.
So, whether it's, 1 or 1,000, anyway. I think facilities master plan is in process.
So,
Ethics training.
is construction excise tax staying on the list or going,
Yes.
or?
Mike says we gotta wait.
It can
till
be,
the
I mean, it can be
legislature-
on the list, but
I'd like us to be proactive instead of always waiting on somebody else to do something before we do something. It's okay if we
to
get out.
what end? What are you going to do with that money? How much money do you need? How many units do you need to build? We don't know any of those questions, and we don't know what the legislature is
Why
going to
do we have
require
to
of
wait
us.
on the legislature to tell us how many units we know that we
Because
need
they're
affordable.
going to.
We know we need affordable housing in this community, and we're not getting it. All we're getting is market rate.
It can stay on the list.
Well,
Fine.
I agree with Commissioner Mitchell. Like I said, I would like to take it off, and instead I would like us to look at inclusionary zoning.
I'm fine with taking it off. And maybe you want to define inclusionary zoning for everyone.
So basically, the principle that if a developer comes in, we give them the ability to build denser based off of whether they're willing to include covenants that certain amounts of those units are at affordable rates rather than being sky high like everything else is.
I thought we tried to do that at the Cove, and look how well that went over. I don't think we put it in enough strong language to make it enforceable. That's part of the
Well, and that's
part of the
I
problem.
think why we need to have a conversation about it.
Well, I would put excise tax they're already building denser. I mean, I don't know how much denser you can get. If you know what I'm talking about, there's a piece of property on Malala Avenue that's basically a parking pad, and somebody is building 4 units on it.
Right, but this is a way that we'd be able to incentivize affordable units without actually having to collect a tax from people.
I would prefer that approach.
Okay. Well, let's look into that.
So am I doing excise tax / inclusionary zoning, or are we getting rid of excise tax and we're
Well,
gonna,
I think it's still valuable to think about it. It doesn't have to be called a tax, but.
It is.
Okay, yeah, I have no problem saying the word tax, you know. Lord knows that industry is making a lot of money off of, you know, off the legislature's craziness.
Well, the question is it an either-or proposition, or are you going to pursue both? And I'll pursue the zoning thing.
I would prefer to just pursue the zoning.
I say maybe. I'm not interested in messing around with zoning and giving people.
so right now I see 3 to remove excise tax and add inclusionary zoning.
Can do whatever.
Okay.
I don't want to take us back, but we just kind of went over the climate action plan presentation. So with that, is it just simply going to be a presentation, or with the idea that we're going to hire a consultant and do a bunch of things? Because this is something that was removed from our goals for this biennium. And for me, as someone who very much believes in climate change, but at the same time recognizes that a lot of the work is going to be done at the state level, which, going hand in hand with the housing stuff, is just going to be shoved down our throats. And so I don't necessarily want us to be spending a bunch of money on a consultant to tell us to do exactly what the state is going to tell us to do. And that's why I supported removing the climate action plan from the this year's biennial goals. And again, I'm the one who's going to inherit this, and I'm going to be living with the results of inaction. And so I strongly believe that there needs to be action. I just want to make sure we're not spending money where it doesn't need to be spent, and instead, like our housing issues, prepare ourselves for what's to come down the pike from the legislature, just like the conversation we're going to have here in the next week or so about the climate-friendly, equitable communities policy. So
let's leave it on there till we hear about what happens with the climate-friendly thing. Because right now we're in a lawsuit, and we're basically saying, give us more time and we'll see where that goes. And then if it doesn't go anywhere and we get out of what we're supposed to be doing and we can do it later, then we can take it off the document. It's just, all it is a presentation. It's not asking us to spend any money. I didn't put it on there, so.
And the answer is,
Would folks like this to stay on or come off?
I'm sorry, what?
Would we like this presentation to stay on the list or to come off? Who would like it to stay on?
I have no problem in us hearing a presentation in sometime in the future.
Okay. 2. Okay, who would like it to come off? I'm sorry, Brock, I missed you. Commissioner.
I'm okay with the presentation, but it's not necessarily an action item. I mean, it might say here, it might simply recite that which we already have, that not knowing where the state is going, we may be
It's not asking
on
us to do a
standby.
plan, it's saying that we're just going to get a presentation.
I heard
So,
it.
but with the idea of doing what in the future?
it doesn't have to be anything in the future. We're going to see, it's information.
Right.
Just leave it on there and let's just move on. We can take it off later after we hear what's happening with CPAC.
I wouldn't view it as a priority.
Yes. Okay, so ethics training. I think, to me, that's something that's ongoing.
Have we taken anything off this list yet?
Yes.
Okay, just check it. Not the West thing, though, I hope.
Could we, I feel like we could take,
A bunch of stuff that's pending, which is,
like facilities master plan, we're in the process of
Yes,
that.
that's
Do you
right.
want, is it all right to take it
we
off?
can take that off the list. It's in process.
How often are we,
Use subcategory.
how often are we to be doing ethics training?
You know, I think we were trying to do it when we had new commissioners come onto the commission. I think with COVID, it kind of got out of sync a little bit.
2025 would be the next event.
Is that the motion? January.
So we can have ethics training?
I'm pretty comfortable with my level of ethics, so. I mean, it's important for
Aren't the rest of us?
well, that's your cross to bear. I think it's important for newcomers to get that training, and we're
Every time
coming
the
into an
commission
election
changes.
year, so.
I think it's important for everybody to know about it.
Well, like the orientation and manual thing that we decided to strike, I think given that it's more of a, this is always going to be happening, I don't think it necessarily needs to be on our list for work sessions.
Yeah, I think it's an annual thing, and I think it goes beyond just this commission. Also, it should also be Planning Commission, Historic Review Board,
Absolutely.
and urban renewal, where financial decisions are being made.
Yeah. And I would say one of the things that needs to be involved in this has to do with social media issues. To me, that's a big problem.
So it sounds like I'm going to take it off, but we want it to be incorporated into a little more regular and broader
Yes,
Yes.
opportunity.
yes.
Okay. Because we do like land use 101 with planning commission. It could be
That's not
something.
ethics.
No, I understand, but, you know, that is something that we've incorporated into with planning commission, so that this is something we could incorporate into that.
So we have Frog Ferry informational update. We have not had that. We could have a presentation on that. I'm not, and then if we want to have continue.
Okay,
I didn't put this on there.
I know, and I'm going to suggest we take it off.
Okay.
Because unless we're going to lead the charge, I mean, the city of Portland is not supporting Frog Ferry.
They did it one time and then the administration
They're not
changed.
now.
No, they're not now.
If they come back and start showing some interest, I think it would be terrific. It's not that I'm not in favor of the Frog Ferry. I am in favor, but I don't understand why it hasn't happened already. But I don't think we can lead the charge.
It would start,
No,
no.
that wasn't the intent. So
Okay,
my.
sorry, maybe I misunderstood.
And maybe, you know, there's a different way about it, but the reason that I brought it up the last
Yes.
few years, only because I don't think that we need to take any leadership role or any part, other than I think it would make sense as other cities have been involved in this. We've never been involved with it to any degree. Multiple cities on the Willamette, up, you know, through Portland, Vancouver, have at least a liaison that goes to these meetings. I have always thought that it was something that we should at least be keeping our eyes on as a city, or at least being aware of it, for tourism, for all these other possibilities. I've been kind of questioning why. Well, one, where are they at in the process? Because I've followed some of it and support from cities and other things. But, you know, basically to get an idea where they're at, and if that's something that we as a city would like to have someone be attending their meetings, just so we're, that if anything does happen, because they were doing some test runs, they were, you know, applying for grants, various things. At some point where a route is tested or a route is planned for in the future, I think we want to be aware of it, just to know that, okay, is this something we want to commit, you know, either not commit to, but to put input into, in light of things happening at the mill site or on the Riverwalk or the redo of any of the waterfront. I mean, it's something that I just put on there as a topic, one, because I think we need to keep apprised of it, either by just mentally keeping a check-in with what they're doing and their progress, or being updated occasionally about it to see at what point we do want to join efforts or not. I just think it's an opportunity we don't want to ignore and then all of a sudden find out, well, hey, they've got a finalized route and they've picked these cities and we somehow never knew it. And because there's too many things like that. The Jansen Beach Carousel, other things that I brought up that have gone off the rail that we could have, I think we just need to be aware of what they're doing, keep an eye on it. If that means one of us is, be able to attend a meeting here and there or something, I don't know. That's really all I am put it out there for.
Okay.
And I think the reason that it was like a presentation was, well, they could tell us kind of where they're at. Are they seeking support from cities? Are they not? Have they lost support from cities? But I mean, I think I would like to just know that.
Yeah.
Game
Okay,
plan.
thanks for that explanation. That makes sense. I didn't understand the intent. Now I do. Thank you.
It was informational. We are working on the Cove water quality and habitat issue.
Well, and it's also a lot of urban renewal.
Right.
As well.
Right.
Was that okay to remove?
Yes.
Yes.
Yep. So we have an annual review. That's the Metro Food Waste Program is going to be coming up in the next year, or this year, I think. So that probably needs to stay on there.
Well, but if it's an annual thing, does it need to be on there?
Well, the food waste program they're doing a pilot,
They
and
kept bumping it back.
they bumped it back, but they haven't rolled it out yet for households. It's on a volunteer basis right now, is what I remember from our last discussion. It might, when they come in, when the county recycling folks come in, that might be something we can have a discussion about where they are on it.
I guess getting back to Commissioner Marl's question, if it's something we know that it's going to be on some type of a calendar, does it need to be on here? Or if it's an annual review, when it becomes that time of year, we'll bring it on.
Okay, that's fine.
I don't think it needs to be there.
Right.
Okay.
Oops. I
Right, so South Fork Water Board, Mountain View Line easements, vacation.
This is, I think, probably members of South Fork. John, can you remind me a little bit on, I believe that we had some an old line with existing easements out there, right, that had not been cleaned up. Is that the history on this one? But they were city or were they South Fork?
So, the old mountain line goes kind of southeast up to the upper part of the Clackamas River. Most of those easements were obtained under the city's name. So while they were utilized by the South Fork Water Board, the easements list Oregon City in all or many of the cases, and this goes well outside. Almost all of these are outside the city. So there's easements that are on people's property that would have to go through quite a process to be vacated. Right now, we've got those easements. I've heard from John Collins that, hey, this is a work item that we should address sometime, and every once in a while he was getting calls from certain people well out into the county that were like, hey, I got this easement on my property, you're not using it, it needs to be vacated. And so there's a fair amount of work there, and it's really a question of, I didn't know whether or not that's a city commission goal. I don't know how that ended up on the list, but it was kind of one of those things
Is
where,
this something that we should transfer these easements to South Fork?
well, South Fork doesn't have a use for them either, right?
South
So
Fork doesn't have a use for, but so
the mountain line's been vacated.
well, that's why it's on our list, because if we own the easement and it's not going to be used,
Then in order to vacate those easements, it would require a concerted effort to go through each individual property that line crossed, where we have easements that we'd have to work to resolve. And so, again, to me, it's a resource issue. I'm not, I don't even know the number of those or how many we have. So maybe that's part of the discussion.
I think we
that's
should have
more
that discussion.
Something that John was familiar with, John Collins, Wyatt may be pretty familiar with it too, but I just know it's kind of this long list of county properties that have that easement that's really no longer used.
It may go back to like 20, 30 years ago, 50 years ago.
Oh, much longer than that, yeah, if you
Back
think of the
when we were
mountain
not-
line, back when the city was getting water from the upper part of the Clackamas River. as
Before
opposed to
South
where
Fork was created? Probably before South Fork was created?
Probably.
Okay, well, see, it really wouldn't be on the South Fork's agenda because if they don't hold the easement, there's nothing they can do about it. I mean, they can't say, oh yeah, I'm gonna vacate them when they aren't the easement holder.
Well, it's something we can touch on our January meeting at South Fork and just say, do you have any concerns about vacating these easements?
Well, we need to
And
know where they are
communicate that.
first of all, so.
Do we have a map of those easements too?
Again, I don't know that the city does. South Fork may.
Okay. Well, we can add that.
Let's just
'cause
touch on it in our
We're going to
meeting.
create a work session, a work profile for the CEO, so that could be on that list. Okay, so that needs to, we'll put down, refer to South Fork for now.
Yep.
Okay, water system risk and resiliency review.
So I think on this one, and John, you can correct me, we give an update annually every year, and then a more in-depth one every 5 years? Is that correct? So I think this is one of those that we just had on here because we bring it back, but it sounds like if it's an annual one that we're going to do, we know we're going to do it, we can go ahead and take it off.
Okay, sounds good.
Well, and we're doing a parallel thing within South Fork too. It was the very terminology we used. What's our risk and what's our resiliency and what's our exposure? So we're having that conversation within our own meetings there, that component and this component.
Right, yep. It's a mandate for water systems.
Yeah.
Willamette Falls Legacy Project Operations and Maintenance discussion. So that's kind of been a moot point now, right? So
It is right now, yes.
taking that off the list. All right.
See, doesn't that feel good?
Yeah, sort of.
As long as we don't add any
Not my
back.
idea of feeling good, but that's all right. Sort of okay. All right.
So items like the Parks Master Plan that we know is going to be a work session item, but it's already work in progress, we don't really need to have it on this list.
No, because I'll probably add that at the very top when we know we're going to bring it. Like that's, to me, that's kind of an ongoing project that we're working on and moving forward. A lot of these in the parking lot area that we just went through, we really weren't working on them. They were brought up before as something we might want to look at or try to schedule or get to at some point, and there really wasn't a concerted effort to move that. So when I think of, like when we start doing community-friendly or climate-friendly equitable communities, right, we're going to be pushing that as an active project. So I don't necessarily know that it needs to go on the kind of this list is one way to think about it.
Right, that makes sense. Thank you.
Okay.
So before we get to the annual conference financial report, so does everybody have Monday, the 8th on their calendar? Who is ever able to attend?
For the walk?
Monday, the 8th. That's why I'm asking you.
Promenade walk.
Did you agree to that time at 4 o'clock? We were going to go on the McLaughlin prom? Yes.
I didn't hear what.
I said Monday, the 8th.
I have that on my calendar.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, 4 o'clock is what I have.
I got,
And are we doing two separate groups?
I've got 4:30. Is it 4 or
4:30.
4:30?
I have
I thought it was
4:30.
4:30.
Pardon? I have 4 o'clock. We'll go to the master list back there. I think it's 4:30.
Everything I have is 4:30. We can read.
Tim
Yeah.
doesn't have it on his calendar at all, so, no.
4:30.
4:30. Okay.
Yeah.
And are we doing two separate groups?
Just can't talk.
Or did you advertise
I
it?
believe we're allowed to take a tour, aren't
Yes,
we?
we are.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the city manager recommends bringing flashlights.
Well, that's why I was thinking it was 4 o'clock. It's quite dark. I mean, it's dark. I mean,
So
why are
if
we
you
doing
see
it?
a bunch of random city
at
people
4
walking
at
around the
4:30, it's
promenade
gonna
with
be
flashlights
dark.
on.
So what?
We're gonna be quick and efficient about it.
What?
We're gonna be quick and efficient about it.
Are you kidding? Not happening.
Maybe we could get some city spotlights out there to the police department or something and really.
Why don't we just have one of the police cars with a spotlight follow behind us
Yeah, I love this idea.
on the path, and then, can light our way. Everybody bring their headlamps. Is there a reason why we're gonna be doing it in the dark?
Well, because people
People
are.
work.
They're trying to get around people's schedules.
On a less humorous subject, this city, if the navigation center comes to be in this mental
It's a
health
resource
facility.
center. Do not call it a navigation.
Well, whatever they want, whatever
A
terminology.
Resource center,
Resource center, mental health facility.
whatever.
This city is providing services at our expense, and we're incurring costs at our expense to essentially subsidize this to the benefit of surrounding communities. And I think at some point, we need to have a discussion with those communities about offsetting those costs with them contributing to costs that we're going to bear, whether it be an increased police presence or whatever, because we cannot simply absorb the costs that we'll incur. So I don't know if that's a work session item or a joint meeting with other cities or what, but
Well, and I had requested that we look into possibly getting reimbursed by the county through the Supportive Housing Services Bond that is through Metro. I think that's something that would be worthwhile because as you'll recall, I had concerns about the fact that we were funding the new case manager position with limited funding that's going to run out through that opioid grant. And so that may be an opportunity for us, once that runs out, to look at the county and say, because we're offering these services and you aren't, how about we get some of that money as well? So
I have no problem in that request. What I don't want is people to make the assumption that if they're paying into part of this resource center, then they can just dump all their people here, and I don't support that, because that's exactly what's gonna happen.
services that are separate from that.
Right, yeah.
That we provide.
Yeah, no, I agree with what you're saying.
We're not adding things back on the
clarification
list.
or what?
I think Chief Davis can jump in on this as well. I think I think we would have to think through this. So for example, with our behavioral health specialists, it's not 100% dedicated to dealing with mental health and substance abuse issues of just homeless. We have housed people who are receiving those services as well as the case manager that we've proposed. It's not solely, but I do agree, right? There's an impact, and how do we quantify that in a way that's defendable?
Well, but it's important to keep in mind that as part of this bond from Metro, it's not just dealing with people that are unhoused now. There's the recognition that one of the cheapest ways that we can prevent homelessness is by keeping people in their own communities. And so, for me, that logic would extend to the fact that even if our mental health specialist or case manager isn't necessarily dealing exclusively with unhoused people, that by the services they're giving, it will hopefully help them not to become homeless and save us a lot of money in the long run. Because if that's the logic that the Metro and county local implementation plan is taking, then it makes sense to me that it would extend to our services as well.
Don't disagree with that. I've told Metro many times that them giving all the money to the counties has not worked. Because we're not getting anything.
If I want to interject here, the county has reached out to the city in multiple cities, and I think you guys are aware of that. So there has been some discussions. I met with Bahid Brown and Adam Brown from the county to understand what they're going to use some of that money for and what we could use for that. So I'm meeting with several different groups, city staff, trying to come up with plans of how we can use maybe get some of that money or utilize that money to help our community. There is a deadline, it's a very short deadline of January 31st. So we're working really quickly, trying to come up with some sort of plan to present to the county to see if they would support that. Initial talks with them, explaining some of the, maybe our own case manager or partnering with other groups. They were very supportive of that and they want to work with us. So that was a good sign.
That would focus solely on unhoused,
Correct.
homeless individuals, rather than the caseworker we have right now is going to deal with whatever cases come in, regardless of status.
Yeah, and that's focused on the BHU, not just homelessness. So this would be a different person focusing on unhoused people or homeless individuals.
Regardless, it'll be important to track occurrences and where they originate and what type they are, because there's some percentage that you're going to want to seek compensation for the additional demand placed upon services in this city.
Oh, absolutely. And anything you bring in, obviously, if you build it, they will come. It's kind of like we've seen that, right? I know talking with the county, one of their biggest focus is trying to get other communities around us to have resources out there. So we are not just taking on all the services. Whether the other cities are jumping on board, and I don't know what those conversations look like, but that was one of their goals that both Vahid and Adam Brown talked about.
Well, and anything we can do to incentivize that action is fine with me.
Yeah, I will believe it when I see the money in our hands. Okey doke. And now for the star of the show. Come on down, Mr. Zook. I believe this is your baby.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. It's good to be back with you again, at least on an annual basis. You were here a year ago, and in your packet this evening, we have the annual financial statements for the year ended June 30, 2023, and a brief staff report. This is information only, but the good news is that the timing of this audit was actually better than the previous year. We're making steps by getting this done sooner. We completed this process in mid-December. The state deadline is the end of December, and so that's we're in our second year with our current audit firm, Aldrich & Associates. It's a 5-year contract, and we are pleased that we're working with them. In your packet, there was a letter from the auditor, and that was just an informational piece about how they felt like the audit went, any management issues, any issues that they had. That is not their opinion letter, but that's just a separate letter that's to the governing body. In the electronic packet, I had a 3-page letter, and I inadvertently left out 5 pages, and so I've distributed that electronically or in paper as well tonight for you guys. So the highlights of the audit, though, are basically that the audit opinion on page 11 said that the city's audit financial statements are clean. An unmodified opinion is the best you can have, and so again, we achieved that this year. I'd like to also point out that on page 14 of the audit report, the auditors did sign their actual name per request of this body a year ago. A minor highlight, but one worth noting. On page 17 of the report is the management discussion analysis, and that's probably the place I'd recommend getting the highlights of the overall city budget. I will say that, not the budget, the financial statements. I will say that if you want to, probably this commission lives and breathes by the budget rather than these financial statements. So these financial statements start, there's really 3 sets of financial statements in this report. One is a government-wide report, which we don't tend to think of this city as a large corporation that combines all their assets. We know that funds exist for dedicated purposes, right? I mean, your water is not funding the police department. Your water revenue is not, your wastewater is not funding the parks department. But the top level of these financial statements looks at it as an entire city. And I think the Government Accounting Standards Board created that probably 20 years ago, that these financial statements be used in order to compare other governments to other governments. They're used by credit rating agencies and folks that are much more high level than where we live and breathe. But so there's a lot of detail here, but the crux of it was that we accomplished the audit on time. We got to the clean opinion. This report goes to our credit rating agencies, goes to our debtors, our creditors, and then also goes to the EPA as a new recipient, a new loan entity from the federal government. So I spoke with you last year and indicated that the financial statements were going to be submitted for the Government Finance Officers Association Certificate of Achievement. We did get that for the 6/30/2022 statements. This is our 12th year in a row. We are going to submit that again. In fact, we already have submitted for that award again. And basically, that's a standard that elevates above the Oregon minimum. So that standard of achievement basically recognizes a framework that includes statistical information, includes holistic information that allows for much more analysis than just your typical single financial statement. So it's a good accomplishment. And actually, I'd like to thank my staff, Aaron Wilkie in particular, who does the bulk of this, as well as Melissa and Jennifer and others, and actually the entire city. I mean, the cooperation of all the departments is important. We do lean on other departments to help perform the audit. We have inventories that we do. We have cooperation on federal grants that we have. So everybody's a part of that. We did have one, last year we talked about a comment or a finding that was indicated about federal funds. That was a policy that we needed to have in place. We actually implemented that August of 2023. So that's been done, but it became up on this statement again because it had not been done by the end of June 30. And if you think back to what we're doing at the beginning of this fiscal year, from January to June, we had some network issues and a budget process that took up most of the fiscal year. So we've accomplished that. We don't anticipate that finding being on there again. And from there, I guess I would want to just carry over to a financial update on where we ended up with this financial statements in relation to the budget that we passed in the spring of this past year. Most of the funds closed the June 30 fiscal year with any fund balances higher than what we anticipated. Keep in mind that when we do our budget, we estimate in March of 2023 as to what those any fund balances are going to be. We generally budget with conservative estimates. And so those any fund balances came in higher than we anticipated, and that's a good thing. Sometimes revenue is higher, sometimes expenses are lower. That's generally what attributes to that. The general fund did finish with a good ending fund balance. Some of those, about 1.8 million, some of those funds were dedicated to things like tourism and the Metro Enhancement Grant, carryovers of funds that are specifically dedicated to particular purposes. Some of the general fund carryover goes to projects that didn't get done by June 30, but were already committed. And so there's not every construction project, not every contract gets wrapped up by June 30, but those carry over. But the good news is that the general fund is in a good position, not only as a result of the ending fund balance, carryover, but keep in mind that when we did the budget, the city went through the process of the budget first, and then the Urban Renewal Agency began its budget process after the city completed it. You'll recall that the city anticipated that the Urban Renewal Agency would issue or would levy the tax in full. Well, we know that the Urban Renewal Agency did not levy the tax for the first year in its entirety, and in the second year, only 25% of the maximum allowed. So that was a benefit to not only all the agencies in that urban renewal district, but the city as well. And so the higher property tax revenues that were just levied on your November's 2023 tax statements resulted in a greater than anticipated revenue for the city. So what that's basically done for us is it's allowed us, if you'll recall, when we were going through the budget process, we had a target balance, ending fund balance of 27%. And we were at 22%. And so this extra funds goes to help us meet our policy of reserve back up to 27% and then some. And so what we anticipate coming back to the commission to do is this next year, we're doing the long-range financial plan, and we'll want to take the surplus that we have and do plan for that to meet some of the future needs of the city. Some of that can be done by just picking up a project, but we also know that we have some needs in the upcoming years. So we didn't anticipate having a discussion about, a surplus, but the good news is that we're meeting our policy and are in a healthy position. So I'm pleased to be able to report that, and that is my presentation. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Well, thank you for submitting the additional information. I will say you have one tiny little typo, but that's it. Just two numbers were transposed.
Okay.
So on page 1 of your memo, Oregon City Oregon Territory was created in 1849. It's just the 9 and the 4 are transposed.
That was actually a test.
1894, I'm not sure I could tell you right off the top of my head what was going on here in 1894, but
Appreciate you bringing that up.
we were already the state of Oregon by then in
Police department,
1859.
well, that was a little later, but.
No, we had a police department
Oh,
early
yeah,
on. Remember?
1880.
Yeah, we had a jail downtown.
Yeah.
We had police. We had fire.
Later, or earlier than
We
that,
didn't-
but, yeah.
We had the water board, which you wanted to create a pool and all that up at Waterboard Park. So any questions about the report? Okay, awesome. All right. We're getting now the end. All right, so we have commissioners' communications. In your packet, then we have item B, so if you will take a look at the list of folks that are being proposed for appointment. I either participated in person or online on all of these. So I can honestly say that I have seen each and every one of these folks. And I want to thank the departments for getting the information to me in a timely manner so that I could actually take a look at them. So I'm just going to ask for your concurrence in appointing these folks to these positions.
Certainly.
Okay, all right, good. I said I don't want to just do it unilaterally, but like I said, I did put in the hours. So last we have updates to commissioners' committee assignments, and Jacob's going to put it up on the board in case you have forgotten what you're doing. So I would like to suggest that if possible, we have a change on the South Fork Water Board. I don't really have a choice. I have to be on it. I found out by the charter, so I can't get off of it. Not that I don't enjoy it, but I'm going to be working with the board and our new chair, which will be the mayor of West Lynn for next year, on putting together a work plan so that we kind of have a path forward on where we're going with things, because I don't think it was totally clear this last year. So I'm looking to both my commissioners to my right as to whether either one of you want to take a break from that. There's been a request a couple of times for an additional change. And I think we can probably take the Oregon City Tourism Stakeholders Group. I don't know whether that's still there or you and I are both on that, and I haven't met with them.
No, there hasn't been meetings.
But maybe that'll morph into something else
Yeah,
with the DMO,
it
so.
probably will.
Yeah.
What is the change, though, for South Fork?
I'm just asking if one of you wants to allow for one of the other commissioners to be on it.
I'll abide by the will of the commission, whatever.
Here's my concern. There is no, well, the two of us are the history of South Fork, are the only existing knowledge base of South Fork in the last 5 to 10 years. I've been on, most of my cycle, but I'm the longest running person that's been on South Fork and has the only knowledge base that goes back that far. I think it'd be a huge mistake to move me off of it, but I also, I guess, don't mind moving off of it, but I think it's a huge loss to the other commissioners on there to not know any of the
Give you Wes
history.
back.
No, it's, oh dear Lord.
I would not, as your friend,
Actually, you know
I would not do
what?
that.
If we start moving forward on the west stuff, put me back on there. I'm ready to go.
That's okay. Let's just say at this point that they find me more pleasant to deal with than our previous mayor. So
Or myself, I'm sure.
I say everything with a nice smile on my face when I'm asking them the question.
I guess most of the South Fork is brand new. And so when there's conversations that go back even a year or two, there's nobody, including the CEO, that has any knowledge of it. And that worries me in issues with discussing water rights. It concerns me with issues regarding Coast River water. All of those issues.
I'm just giving people the opportunity, if they want to, they can. I'm not saying you have to. I'm not insisting. I'm just saying that the other ones seem to be, the other things that we're all on seem to be less desirable to people. But somehow or another, South Fork comes up as something that people really are interested in.
So I am fine with my current committee assignments. I had expressed an interest in South Fork back when it was unclear whether Commissioner O'Donnell was going to be returning. And in the next year, after his term, that would be something I'm interested in looking at. But as for right now, I'm fine with my current committee assignments.
Okay. Mike?
Well, it's fine the way it is. And I also would be interested in South Fork down the road, just so everybody knows.
Okay.
I guess the question I have, and maybe Commissioner Marl can help me with about this too, I'm not sure it makes sense to have the C4 representative and the C4 Metro Subcommittee representative be two different people. To be honest, I'm still trying to figure out what C4 Metro Subcommittee is supposed to be doing.
And that's a good thing.
That I'm confused?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Because I think that the more questions you ask about it, the better.
But I'm fine with it the way it is.
Everybody else okay? Okay, so it's going to stay the same. All right. So we have any other business? Anything else going on? You really didn't get to say anything because Matt got that. So do you have anything you want to add?
Nothing else, thank you.
So do we have any when is our new person coming on?
February.
Monday, February 5th.
Okay. Go ahead.
Just a final reminder that this Saturday, the 6th, at 1 o'clock in the Gladstone High School Auditorium is the legislative hearing on tolls for the Gladstone, Westland, and Oregon City communities. I know the mayor is going to be there. I will be there giving a public comment as well. Anyone from the public is invited to come and give 2 minutes of testimony to our state legislators, who in the end are the ones who are going to decide the fate of what this tolling plan looks like. And so I hope that as many people as possible are able to make it out there and show a strong force of support for taking a second look at what this plan might look like. And so, yeah,
Is it a second look?
or third or fourth.
But we were down the road quite a bit. So I am going to be wearing my no toll shirt, so just letting everybody know. I'm not, I think it'll be fairly apparent. I've worn it in several other places, so I always get lots of good comments about it. All right, thank you, everybody, for this first meeting, and we'll look forward to a productive year. We got this meeting off to a great start. Thank you to everybody in the back. Thank you, staff, and everybody sitting behind Matt Zook. We'll thank them as well. And we'll see you next week, if not before. So we are adjourned.